see, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about a boogie book, and I'm going to play one.
This is Better Off Dad with Paul and Steve, just trying to figure out how to do the right thing when things are hard. And I'm wearing a hoodie today, as you can tell, which reminds me, I'm going to get out my smartphone and turn down the temperature a little bit because the former president said we need to bring down the temperature, if y'all remember that from the news. Today, we're going to be talking about it. It's weird. I don't normally start out sharing my screen. But as you can see, we're going to be talking about 10 things that parents are concerned about, and we've got 14 already. So
10 things, we have 14. Because what's the line about every self-respecting good trilogy has to have at least 4 volumes?
That's right. Today is all about what has parents concerned, and we are nothing if not transparent. This came out of a conversation we were having, I believe, last Thursday, where we were wondering, what's this show about? And we talk about that all the time. You guys don't know how often we talk about what stuff is about.
That's like 50% of our messages back and forth. What's the show about?
What's the show about?
What's it all about, really?
Yeah. What's it all about, really? The key is, well, it's about you guys. That's who it's about. It's about the listener, all 6 of you. And the reason it's about you is because that's what keeps us coming back. Now, obviously, we will talk no matter what, but we want to know. So we were like, well, what is it really? Well, we're dads. It's Better Off Dad. It's parenting when things are hard, trying to do the right thing. What are those things? So we did a little brainstorming exercise. Speaking of work. By the way, I'm wearing this hoodie to cover up I'm wearing my work shirt. And I've decided that, in case we get famous, I don't want to get doxxed and have my company suffer the consequences of my loose lips. I don't want my company's ship to be sunk by my loose lips.
Right.
Well,
I'm wearing my official Death Cryptopia t-shirt, so
nothing can sink that ship.
That's right.
It's unsinkable, like the Titanic.
The unsinkable Molly Brown. Well, this is the unsinkable Death Cryptopia.
The very first one. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk through these, and if we, whichever ones seem to resonate with us, we're going to do whole shows about each one. So don't worry, we're not doing 14 shows today.
No.
We're just going to talk through these and see which ones sort of resonate and sort of make a plan.
If it resonates with anybody listening too, they just let us know, because we might skip over one because in our own effort to find out what we want to do, we might be missing something that we didn't realize.
Yeah, and I'll put all these, including any notes I take while we're talking, into this. Is starting to feel like work. Like there's an agenda. I'm going to be taking notes. I'm going to publish the notes in the show notes. I'll publish our meeting minutes in the show notes. Can you hear me, by the way? Am I coming through okay?
Can you see me? Yeah.
Can you see me? Is this thing on? All right. The first one, actually, interestingly enough, comes to us from a listener. I actually got from my brother last week. He sent me a text. He liked the show. He's still laughing about you can hang that in your ass.
Yeah. Like I said, you can thank my dad for that one. He's full of gems.
This is the 3rd episode, by the way. If you missed episode 2, go back and listen. It'll have you laughing. I think it was about the being available for work even when you're not scheduled.
that flexible work schedule BS. Yeah, no.
So the first one actually did come from my brother. He said, here's an idea. He says, how many diapers do you think our dads changed? And just take all dads combined between the years of, I don't know, 19 whatever and 1975.
Yeah. I'm thinking 3.
Yeah. He's like, the total number of diapers they changed compared to the total number of diapers we've changed.
I remember when you before your oldest was born, you're like, we're talking and you're like, how many diapers do you change in a day? I'm like, oh, for a newborn, I'll probably about 12, 15. You're like, 12 to 15? I'm like, all they do is poop and sleep and eat, dude. It's
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how many diapers to buy to be ready. And the internet wasn't as good back then as it is now. Like you could just type in Google, how many diapers do I need to buy? And it would be there. But so Google, for us, Google was phone a friend, ask your friend who had a baby. So I did that. The other thing, speaking of friends, a friend of mine gave me a book called Be Prepared. And it was written for dads to get ready for their firstborn. And it was written in the style of like a Boy Scout handbook.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
A survival guide.
I think I've heard of that one.
And it was awesome.
Have you ever, did I ever send you a copy? Granted, I mean, that was so long ago, but there was a really good one. It's the only baby book you'll ever need, but it's called She's Having a Baby and I'm Having a Nervous Breakdown.
I have not. Why don't you send me a link to it? I'll put it in the show notes. Personally, I probably don't need it myself.
Well, not at the moment, no, but it's highly entertaining.
So we're in the hospital. Eli's born. And my wife's in the, laid up.
As one would be.
She'd been doing something.
Something, that's a word for it.
She was behaving as though she was tired. And so my son needs a diaper change, right? So I'm like, all right. And the nurse is like, you want me to do that? I go, no, I got it. So, they had a stack of diapers next to that little, looks like, those carts in the grocery store that they use when they're doing the shopping for you, when you order it online. Have you seen them pushing those things around?
Yes.
Or, the AV cart from grade school. That's what it the AV cart that's got the projector on it and stuff. Only take the projector off and put a little, Lexan, like plexiglass box on it. Kids laying in that, right? So I'm like, I got this. So they got this big stack of diapers next to it or whatever, and some cream and whatever, all the accoutrement, all the tools of the trade, as it were. So I walk up, I do the whole, 3-finger, like, where you, the ankle, you got the index finger here, so the ankles don't bounce up against each other. And then you grab almost the 2 legs.
Yep.
Got them up like this. I'm like, diaper off. I go wipe, get the cream stuff, put that on there. You put the diaper under, you put the clean diaper under before you take the old diaper off. Take the old diaper off, get the stuff. Now the clean diaper's already there. Get it all done. There, kiss on the forehead. The only thing I didn't do was the thing the guy from Christmas Story, when he got the flat tire, I didn't go, time me.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I didn't do.
Oh, man.
So I got it done. And the nurse is like, oh, cool. This isn't your first diaper, I can see. And I go, as a matter of fact, that was my first diaper change. I had never done it before in my life, but swear to God, I was not joking with this nurse. And she didn't know me well enough to not believe me. So she was like, oh my God. And I go, no, that was my first diaper. She's like, well, what? That was your, I go, I read a book.
That's right.
And, after that, it was like thousands upon thousands of diapers. And you're right.
If you counted them, man, it would be, especially with multiple kids.
Oh, and then you get the clean diaper up under there. You get the dirty diaper off, and they immediately pee into the clean diaper.
Yeah, well, at least it, didn't hit your floor or your couch or wherever.
That time. Dude would have explosive diarrhea. Dude would
Oh,
be
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'd be like, he'd be up on the dining room. This is when we lived in Chicago. He'd be up on the dining room table. I'd have him situated up on the dining room table. There's a china cabinet behind me. I'd get I love this move.
Yeah.
This was in the
hard to do
book.
now at our age. It's like,
This
yep.
was in the book with a diagram, and it was like, I don't know, get 2 sausages or, a couple of, if you got, a couple of hammers or something to, practice that move. But I'd get them all situated. I'd get the dirty one off, turn to get my cream, and explosive diarrhea would just shoot over my shoulder, right? And hit the wall behind me. And I'm like, what? Craziness.
I think I probably changed diapers off and on for about 15 years. And like never once had an accident. Never once got hit.
Really?
Now, my ex-wife, on the other hand, didn't understand that you don't point a loaded gun at your head. And it happened more times than I care to count.
I don't understand how you never had that. That's amazing. You should
I had
write a book.
My mother keeps telling me to. I'm like, but that's going to dredge up a lot of pain. So I don't know if I want to go there yet.
So we promised we wouldn't do a whole show on each one of these. That's just one. So if we do a show, you can tell we got a lot of stories. We'll probably retell the stories we've told so far. But that one's really more about there's 2 adults in the house. In a lot of cases. When there's only 1 adult, obviously that adult has to do all the work, right? But when there are 2 adults, there's no reason for just one of the 2 adults to be doing all the work just because of the genitalia they were born with or whatever, right? Somehow our dads were of the impression that was woman's work.
Our dads also stood outside smoking cigars while the baby, the mom was in the room doing all the work.
My dad was at a bar.
I remember when my little brother was born, the youngest in the family was born. I distinctly remember sitting in the station wagon in the parking lot of the hospital with my dad and the rest of us. Like, looking back, I'm like, so are we just gonna like roll up after the baby, roll up to the cul-de-sac, pick her up, and come home?
Just like a slow roll. They could toss it in the window.
Yeah.
All right, so that's what that one will be about. The next one I thought about is another thing. Now this is getting a little older. Older, that they're probably out of diapers by this time.
That's the
next 3 actually kind of are triangulating around the same topic. It's online relationships, screen time / phones, and social media. Now, all 3 of those kind of point at similar anxieties, right? That parents have.
Yes.
And it probably starts with the screen time and the phones. People are, I think. So interestingly, we didn't know how to think about it because there weren't phones when we were little. There weren't phones when we were young adults. There weren't phones when our kids were babies. There weren't. I mean, the phones came out about 3 years before kids our age started getting them. Right.
Yes.
2008, the iPhone. 2007, I think it was, the iPhone came out. If I'm remembering correctly, the first iPhone. And so it took a few generations of iPhone before, they really, and then other companies started making smartphones and stuff. But when our oldest started coming to the point where they were starting to socialize and everything, everybody had a phone, right? And everybody was on a group chat. And I was like, I don't think he needs to be on a group chat. It's like, do school at school, and then there needs to be an escape when you come home. This is my rationale, right? As you'll hear soon, my mind got changed. My thing was do school at school, whatever stress is going on there with relationships and all that stuff, you get to leave that at school.
Right.
And then when you come home, you get a break from it all. Right. That was my rationale. It was explained to me very clearly that if you are going to form relationships and socialize, you have to do it in the way that it's done. And here's the advantage that wife had that I didn't have. When she was a kid, she lived close to a lot of her friends or a lot of the people that she went to school with. So after school, they didn't put her on a bus and ship her out to the middle of Springfield fucking nowhere, right? She walked home with her friends, and then we're like, hey, what are you doing? We're going to the park. We're doing this. We're doing that. She was involved in all those after school relationships, whereas we were cut off from any relationships. And so we would wonder why, when we get to school, why are we not in on anything? Right.
You know, I never thought about that until just now, but yeah.
That's why we're here, man. We're here to bring new ideas.
I've always had this weird disconnect with like that. Well, and I've always had this weird disconnect with the bulk of Generation X that I always hear about, because we did this and we did that. And I'm not talking about the playing in the, surviving in the woods and stuff. And or watching these TV shows where all this stuff is going on. And I'm thinking, what? It wasn't like that for me. What the hell? Yeah. And then when we were absolutely just cut off, because we were clear the hell out in BFE.
Now, this was before, like what I'm talking about now is even before smartphones and stuff. It was just texting at that time. When of course we didn't. People are like, well, you didn't have texting. No, we were out in farm country and we had each other, and that was enough.
That's why I hung out at your house every chance I could, just to get out of my house.
Now, to be clear, there were kids in our neighborhood, and they were crazy.
Monsters. Imagine an entire neighborhood of Scott Farkases.
You go, how's that possible? In a neighborhood of Scott Farkases, we were Ralphie.
Be a Ralphie.
Oh, my kids, a Christmas story. Maybe we'll do a whole Christmas story episode. But my kids are like, didn't you grow up in the 40s? And I was like, yep, I sure did. Yeah. I thought I grew up in the 70s until I saw A Christmas Story, and I was like, oh, I can relate to so much in that show. I don't know why all the cars are like old looking, but I can totally, that's exactly like my childhood. Yeah. When was this movie supposed to be set? And somebody's like, the 40s. I'm like, that explains everything.
Yeah. When you consider the age of our parents and where they came from, it makes total sense that we would just continually, be watching Christmas Story, like you said, and going, oh yeah. Because, my dad has that truck and my uncle has that car and,
and Bixby's or whatever, department store downtown. All right. So the reason I bring up that it was text at that time that we were talking is social media hadn't really taken off and all that. And I suppose it would have been or could have been a different conversation had social media been around. Now, we didn't allow our kids to do Instagram and all that stuff until they were older. Yeah. But once they got on it, I was still like, is it the right thing to do? Is it good? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? And man, like everything else, anything that can be used for good can be used for evil, right?
Yes.
So it's not that social media is good or bad. It's how do you interact with it, and what sorts of guardrails do you have?
Right.
That's what that's about. In online relationships, I got into this sort of, I call it a discussion. It might have sounded like a debate, but I don't like debating people at loud bars with live bands. Yeah. But the dude, we were just talking about kids and phones and all that stuff. He's like, oh, it's terrible. It's awful. Yeah. I was like, no, man, during the lockdowns and the pandemic, if it weren't for the technology and social media and stuff, I don't know, man. I was just thankful for it. My kids developed relationships with people from other states and other countries, and great, deep, fulfilling relationships. And I actually talked about my son. I talked about this with my son, and he brought up points I hadn't even thought of. Because
of course he did.
Of course he did. Of course he did. I've always been taught, that communication is 80% nonverbal, right? So if all you're getting is a voice, or all you're getting is written word or whatever, you're not getting the full communication. How can you develop relationships without that? And that's what this guy's point was at the bar. You can't develop a relationship because it's different than being in person. And I knew
I'm
he was full
guessing
of
that's the
shit.
same kind of person that, he's the same kind of guy that, insisted he couldn't wait to go back to the office,
Oh, right. We got to be at the office. Got to be face to face. He probably also doesn't use self-checkout, I'm guessing. Probably complains about it. Well, that's a whole other show. Oh, let me write that down. Self-checkout. Self-checkout. Anyway, that could be a whole show. I could tell you all about the online relationships that my kids have developed and why, by the way, like I'm convinced that everything that I think is true, I'm just going to start assuming the opposite is true.
Mm,
because once you do that, like let's go 80% of communication is nonverbal. It's body language, it's voice intonation, it's facial expressions, it's whatever, right? Oh, that makes sense. I get that. I could tell what somebody's thinking just by looking at them, right?
right.
What if we assume the opposite is true? What if we're like, no, that's really kind of bullshit? Because just because somebody's slouching in their chair doesn't mean you can infer anything from that. Maybe they're just tired that day.
Right.
Maybe they're really enthusiastic about this project you're working on, but they just, I don't know, had a flat tire, and so their back hurts, or whatever, right? Or if you ever read the letters between John Adams and like any of these old dudes, that used to wear pantyhose back in the day, their letters to each other, like he would spend years in France, as what other, like Ben the Playa Franklin.
That's right.
And all they had were letters that would take weeks to get to the person, right?
Yep.
And they would form these deep, intimate relationships that historians study.
Yep.
But now boomers suddenly feel like, oh, no, you can't do that. You got to be in.
Right.
Look, Benjamin Franklin, you can't develop a deep relationship with Sally, whoever. You got to be. Anyway, that'd be
well.
Another
The three things. One, the boomers that complain that kids today spend too much time on their phones were the same people that plopped us in front of the TV, for endless hours. Two, the thing about these online relationships, whether they're romantical or just friendical, is any kind of relationship that someone can develop with somebody at a younger age. Like I didn't let my kids do it till they were in the double digits, and I'm talking the high double digits. If they meet somebody from somewhere else, that's showing them that the world is bigger than the town they grew up that they're growing up in.
Absolutely.
And it's the same. It's kind of like it's almost like leaving the nest and going into another town, which is always something that people should do. It's the same. It's virtually it's virtually the same thing, and it just expands the world. It's like when I chat when I do FaceTime with Michael in Sweden, it makes that distance. It shows you how big the world is and how small it is at the same time. And if a kid can learn that, kid meaning older kid, if a kid can learn that, it's going to help them in the future. To think globally, more globally than anything. And third thing, remember when you messaged me, because you sent me a email or something when you found out Constance was pregnant, and I told you this goes to your.
Oh man, Constance is pregnant, dude.
Spoiler.
She hasn't told me yet. Oh my God, she told you, but she didn't tell me.
Act surprised.
Okay. I will. It won't be acting.
You'd be like, hello, say. No, you told me that she was pregnant. I'm like, hey, congratulations. You're about to learn. You know absolutely nothing. So we're all, it's a learning experience for sure.
Truer words. That'll be a good episode. And I have tips and tricks because people go, well, but how do we keep them safe? I have ideas. They've worked so far. They're not 100%, but so far so good. So then we got see these episodes practically write themselves.
Yeah.
Like we're having trouble not going off and making it each one an episode, right?
We have decades of experience.
Yeah, we do.
Between us that we could share.
Yeah, we do. The good, the bad, the ugly. The next one I had on my list was bullying. I'm very concerned about bullying. I'm sure a lot of parents are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think we start out, at least I started out thinking, okay, no way are my kids going to be the bully, and I will be able to detect if they are, and I will put a stop to it pretty quick.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I figured the best way to do that was to teach them to be the helper, like to
Right.
watch out for other kids. You know, the strong protect the weak, right?
Yeah, you've talked about that a lot back in the don't panic days.
Yeah, yeah. Just so fast forward,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize or I didn't consider that my kids might be the ones getting bullied. So teaching my kid, because I got bullied and I was like, I'm going to teach them what I learned, and then it's going to help them not get bullied. It's like,
It
nope.
it boggles my mind, baffles me, and all the other B words that your gigantic self got bullied ever in school.
I just remember we had this, I think we might have talked about this on Don't Panic. Like, I just remember it just kind of suddenly stopped. Like somewhere like midway through 8th grade or maybe 9th grade. And I
Yeah.
never knew why until somebody, I think it was you, pointed out, you got big. Like
yeah.
you you went from being like what, 5'10" ish, maybe 140 pounds or something. I think I wrestled in the 145-pound weight class in 7th grade, part of 8th grade, to being like 6'2" and 215 pounds, like within a couple of years.
All that
It's like,
corn kicked in, man.
I don't care how meat-headed a bully is, they're not completely stupid, right? So, guns. This one I thought of for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
There's an incident at the Kentucky State Fair recently, and my wife and son were there. So they had to, lay down on the floor for a while in the, where the, with the gum wrappers and the pieces of popcorn and spilled soda and whatever.
God only knows what else.
It was like, it reminded me of Elaine in that episode of Seinfeld when they're trying to get around the Puerto Rican parade and she went under the bleachers.
Yeah.
By the time they got out, her hair just had popcorn and wrappers and everything in it.
Yes.
This is funny.
Yeah. To me, man, the whole gun situation is essentially like it's right up there with COVID, because anymore, like everybody knows somebody that was directly affected by this kind of nonsense.
Yeah. Well, the solution to me is obvious. It's always been obvious. If you have a problem with people having guns where they shouldn't have guns and potentially using them, the obvious solution to me is to make it easier for more people to get guns. Isn't that the thing that occurs to you? Is like, oh, too many guns out there, too many people with guns. Like, it's hard to control, like, who might do something crazy with it, right? Because there's no accounting for taste, right? You can't figure out, like, who's going to be the bad guy, who's not. There's absolutely no way to tell who might have a mental health problem, or who might be mad at their wife, or who might, who might be a, extremist, whatever. There's absolutely no way to tell. So the best thing to do would be just give guns to everybody.
Like, I think. Just hand them out. Do like drugs for guns for drugs.
Guns for drugs. You bring us. Hey, you solve two problems at once. You get the drugs off the street, and you get more guns on the street.
There you go.
Hey, win-win.
Hey,
win,
man.
Win-win.
We're just knocking them out of the park.
Obviously, and obviously bigotry, racism, violence against people of color.
Yes.
Indigenous people, violence against LGBTQ, violence against marginalized groups, let's just say. That worries me because of the way it's being stoked by the alt-right media and the clickbait media and all that. Just keeps stoking those flames. And every time the temperature comes down a little bit, like somebody comes up with some other reason you need to be afraid of the marginalized group, and it doesn't take it's not like I think like 90% of my neighbors are going to get pitchforks and come after us, right? It doesn't take 90% of my neighbors. It takes one crazy with an AR-15, right? Or a 22 or a Saturday night special. You know, it doesn't take much, right?
So that's why you got to give them all the crazies.
But I have thought, you know, if only the crazy white right-wing nut jobs have guns, then the good guys don't have any guns, right? It's like, should I at least go to the range and learn how to shoot one? You know, I mean, yeah, I've always thought that was kind of funny. Oh no, you got to be highly trained. You got to go to the range. You got to practice. I practice. Blah blah blah. It's practice. It's like, dude, I know which end to point. Okay. And I know that it's not just as simple as I can just pick one up and shoot it, but it can't be that hard. I shot Carl's a couple times and it was not hard. It was just like,
no,
that's the safety, that's the trigger, that's the end where the boom comes out of. I'm like,
yeah,
cool. And now, and the reason I know that it's complicated is all bullshit is whenever you see a picture of an amateur with a gun, right? All you get from the right-wing gun nuts is trigger discipline. They're like, look how they're holding it. They're not exercising trigger discipline. Or if they are, like when, what's his name? Kyle Crybaby.
Rittenhouse. Yeah, Kyle Crybaby. Yeah.
Rittenhouse. Like, look at his trigger discipline. See, he knows how to use a gun. I'm like, so all I got to do to convince a right-wing gun nut that I know what I'm doing is stick my finger out over the trigger guard like this.
Yeah.
And because they don't have anything else, right? They don't talk about their other hand. They don't talk
Oh,
about
they'll figure
where it's
something
clean.
else out.
They
Like,
don't-
oh, look, he didn't mean violence because he didn't have his finger in the right position.
It's like that, what's her name? McCloskey with her gun. You know, she's got her hand on her hip. She's got her capri pants and barefoot, and she's just like, and no trigger discipline whatsoever. And she's got that little. It looked like a lighter that she was pointing.
Yeah, I had one of those. I had the little gun lighter.
Anyway,
you know, the thing about that those people are basically just what we used to call armchair quarterbacks. They know everything. Just ask them; they'll tell you.
Yeah. All right, so yeah, I'm concerned about bigotry and racism and all that. My oldest is gonna leave Indiana as soon as he can, and it's not because he hates his parents. You know, that was the thing back in the day. Like, I'm getting out of this place.
Yeah.
You know,
I can't do anything. Like, I'm getting out of here.
Yeah. Leading a fulfilling life while making a living. We've been talking about this one too, because it's like, where's that balance between do what you love and pay the bills? Because we live in a country that thinks that, you know, living requires, requires money. You're not allowed to live unless you got money, right? I
had a conversation just the other night. I was talking about the new tales of the mysterious traveler, available wherever you find your podcasts. I was talking about that I've gotten a pretty, what I feel is a pretty decent amount of success with the show. And the first thing out of this dude's mouth was, making any money at it? It's not all about money, man.
What we were taught, when we were growing up, we were taught it was all about money.
Yep. And do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life, which is bullshit.
Well, it is. Yeah. We could talk about that one. That's not that could be like most of the episode could be about that.
Yeah.
But because Seth Godin, I like Seth Godin's take on that, because he basically, he's a business writer, author, podcaster, and I always feel like I have to explain to people who he is, even though he's got like millions of followers.
and as dopey as our show gets, I'm pretty sure that most of the people who listen to our show know who he is too.
Okay.
So
yeah, okay, good.
I don't think I'm not worry about it.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the comedic actor Seth Rogen. I'm talking about Joe Rogan's brother. I'm talking about. Anyway, he has great points on this. It's not that you have to hate what you do for a living. It's just that don't ruin your passion by thinking you have to make money at it.
Yes.
But anyway, yeah, we could go through my whole story on that episode too. I stopped short of saying it, that attitude ruined my life, but it certainly didn't help it much.
Yeah.
And I posted on Facebook recently the thing about being a musician. I said, my youngest is the age I was when I wanted to be a musician. When I knew that's what I wanted to do with my life is to be a musician. And then my oldest is the age I was when by that time I had been talked out of it, both by the people around me and myself. And it got likes and it got like reactions that led me to believe people took the opposite point to what I meant.
Well, there's an episode.
It is an episode. I mean, it may not have been musician. Who knows? Maybe it would have been. It would not have been chemical engineer. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Which wow, this leads right into education versus training. Which that would be a whole episode about schools and how schools are run and from an academic point of view.
By the way, coincidentally, bringing that up today when we're recording this is the anniversary of Ray Bradbury's birth.
Ooh.
And one of Bradbury's things was, if we're just training technicians and not teaching them, the society is going to fall apart.
Yeah.
That was the problem in Fahrenheit 451 was the doctors and medics and stuff were just trained. They weren't taught.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
that man has been right about every damn thing.
Number 10 is raising kids to be anti-racist. That kind of goes with number 7, I think. And maybe that would be in the same show. It's kind of like, okay, you're worried about it. What are you doing about it?
Right.
Number 11, dating with kids. And I realized after writing that's a weird way to write that.
Well, these were, this was off the top of the head kind of things,
Unless you are a kid, do not date with kids. Dating when you have kids. How's that? That's one I don't understand at all. And that'll be your show. That'll be your episode to shine.
Oh, we might lose that explicit, we might have to go label it explicit if I start talking.
Dating.
Yes.
Who's crying? Nobody. We're just dating.
I'll be crying later.
I guess that goes with being
tricky.
a single parent a little bit. That's one of the aspects of being a single parent, right?
Yeah, the weird aspect of having a second life, because
second life.
Yes, if you don't, you don't want your kids to think, like in my case, you don't want your kids to think that, wow, I have a lot of aunts,
Yeah.
Whereas, you don't want that. So you want to kind of keep it separate. And it's kind of like you're sneaking out of the house all over again, I've had dates where, like, I would get a phone call we'll just call it mid-date. I have to bring the kids home. All right, time to go.
Dating when your ex is crazy.
Number 15.
Being a single parent, man, I'm amazed. Anytime like I have a day where I feel overwhelmed, I just go, well, Paul has to do this and doesn't have backup. So
the trick is, and I'm not even saying that I pull this trick off like hardly ever, but you need, it's a cliche, you need a support group. If you can get a decent amount, 2 or 3 people, and actually listen to them when they tell you, don't do that Midwestern thing. Ooh, I don't want to bother anybody. Take their help when they ask for it, because these people aren't volunteering it for nothing.
Yeah.
They actually mean it when they say it.
Yeah.
It's not the same, but it definitely helps.
Keeping your own identity beyond being a parent.
Yeah. That's basically not erasing who you are for who you've become.
I'm looking forward to learning from you on that one.
Me too, brother. Me too. I still ain't got it all figured out. I'm only just now coming to terms with a lot of it, and almost like remembering, oh yeah, I used to do that.
Yeah.
Once I get to the cloud of the whole 2020 thing, what did we do before 2020?
Right. Yeah. Well, that's, phew, man, I used to do more before that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the last few years, it's felt like maybe it's martyr syndrome or something, but it's just felt like it would be an indulgence that I can't afford to go off and do something that's just for me,
It's
or
because
that's my thing.
we've trained ourselves to be 100% responsible,
Yeah.
and it's just like anything else. I'm not saying that's a bad habit, but breaking a bad habit is damn near impossible.
Yeah. And that's a good one because it leads directly into number 14, empty nest syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Because oh, there we go. Because if you haven't maintained your own identity,
Yes.
when your kids are gone, you're like just sitting there like, okay, now what?
That's why a lot of so-so marriages end in divorce once the kids leave the nest. Because all your entire identity is parent. That's why you stick
Mhm.
together, parent. You don't, you maybe don't realize it at the time.
Yeah.
But I've been told this by several people who have gotten divorced after the fledgling leaves the nest.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not really doing the kid any favor
Mm-mm.
by losing your identity because they will feel responsible if
Yep.
you're sitting at home sad, like I've lost myself, I don't know who I am because, now that you're gone, like whenever you ask them how they're doing, it's like, depressed.
Yeah.
Why? Because I don't do what do you do during the day? I don't do anything. I go to work, I come home, I do nothing. There's no
Mm-hmm.
kids to take care of. You left me,
Mm-hmm.
you abandoned me. Why would you do that? Why would you leave me? I'm sorry, we're still doing a show.
If you raise your kids to feel empathy and to notice things and to be, and to read a room, they will pick up on it and they will feel guilt about it, whether you are joking about it or not.
Absolutely.
It's one of the problems of raising your kids to be well off, smart, all that is that's what you raise.
Yes. Independent.
Yep. Yeah, independent.
Yeah, it's funny because you and I both love joking around, and one of our styles of joking around is to say something that to us is obviously not true,
Hmm.
right? And we
Hmm.
expect people know us well enough to know that we're joking, right?
Yes,
I've had to learn over the years to rely less on that.
that's
and
funny.
and to somehow get across either like if I think it's worth it, if I think it's funny enough, I will figure out how to make sure they know I'm joking. Right. Yeah.
My therapist had told me that the thing about parenthood is it's like the one thing we strive for is to prepare our kids to leave the nest.
Yeah.
And then when they start getting in that direction, we start freaking out because, you know, it's because they're a giant portion of our life,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
and they're part of us, not just DNA, but they're part of us in a lot of ways. And when that piece of you leaves your general vicinity, there's a big hole.
Yeah.
It's still there, but it's not. You know.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to start training myself now because my son will be out of here in less than a year. I got to train myself like you and I will talk about it. I'll talk about it with my wife, but I will not talk about it with him.
Yeah.
Even though I talk about a lot of stuff with him that's like you would go, well, why are you talking to your kid about that? I'm like, because he has great ideas. And he has great thoughts and
Yeah.
insights and stuff. So I'll be like, hey, I'm dealing with this at work. What do you think's going on? But I will not be like, oh, you've left. Now there's a big hole. How
Yeah.
do we? I will, however, I will use Simone's joke as many times as I can, where she's like, so after he leaves, when he comes back to visit, do we have to clean the house like when other companies come in?
You know what the answer to that is? Yes. Because here's what happened to me. Arlo's been gone a year,
Yeah.
and I, I she the second time her and her boyfriend came up here to visit, it was basically unannounced. And I was taking a nap. So I got woke up from that whole, that whole thing where you're trying to figure out how the world works and you're trying to
Yeah.
figure out which way does gravity go and that kind of thing.
Multiple times a day for me.
Well, they come walking in the door and I was like, my house was a wreck, dude. And they're like, well, we're gonna run down to Aldi and pick up some stuff for supper and whatnot. I'm like, all right. But they wanted to stop in and drop their stuff off. And man, they walked out the door. I just looked at the other two and I'm like, all right. We cleaned the house in like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the answer is yes. Yes, you will have to.
100%. 100%. All right. The last one is figure out our Sunday night back to school groove. I think that's going to go in our school episode, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like what could the schools be doing to make it easier?
Yeah. Number one, don't start so early. Number two, get rid of homework.
Yeah, the boomers are going to love those ideas. They'll all be dead soon anyway, so it doesn't matter.
That's what I've trained my kids when they run into a crotchety person who you just can't deal with. They'll be dead soon. Don't worry. They're nothing to worry about. They'll be dead soon.
So to recap, we just rattled through 15 ideas and added one called self-checkouts. If any of those resonated with you, just to remind you, changing diapers, online relationships, screen time, social media, bullying, guns, bigotry, fulfilling life while making a living, education versus training, raising kids to be anti-racist, dating when you have kids, being a single parent, keeping your own identity beyond being a parent, empty nest syndrome, and how in the heck are we going to get used to this new routine of going to school in a weird schedule? Speaking of flexible schedules, when you're a senior, apparently there is no set schedule. You just kind of come and go as you please.
Yeah.
So yeah, let us know. Shoot us a text, whatever, So just to give you context, we love to hear from you, but we never, ever, my brother sent me that text the other night. That's the first communication we've gotten from you guys in years. So you want to be the cool kid? Send us something. Tell us what you think. Which of those topics resonates?
Post it in the Don't Panic group, Post it on a comment, make a comment somewhere.
Hashtag thought the group would like this.
Yeah. Maybe that's our safe word.
That's our safe word. Cacao. All right. We're not going to do any better than that. We got our safe word. What else do we need? Thanks for listening. This has been Better Off Dad with Paul and Steve, trying to figure out how to do the right thing when things are hard. And it shouldn't be this hard.